Hi there, my name is Mr. Hussain and I'm one of the RE consultants for Harris Federation, and this video is going to be on the topic of predestination on the Islam belief section of the AQA GCC specification. So we're going to cover that area highlighted on the checklist, ensuring you know some of the key aspects of predestination in Islam. So let's first look at the word predestination as a key word. And this is the belief that everything that happens has already been decided by Allah, and it is one of the 6 articles of faith in Sunni Islam. So it's a key belief in Sunni Islam specifically as one of the things you have to believe in to be a Muslim, some would say. So 2 things about predestination. Number one belief about predestination is that many Muslims believe that we can't choose to do something if Allah has chosen a different path. So many Muslims do believe that if Allah has decided something, then we can't change that. It is something Allah has chosen for us. If Allah has destined for me to be a teacher, then I'm going to be a teacher. I can't change that destiny because Allah knows the future and He is someone who's planned the future. So therefore, we can't escape that plan. But we must do our best to make the most of that plan. Number 2, another belief that Muslims have in predestination is Allah knows the future, but we still have freedom to choose. So even though Allah knows where we're going, what we're doing, we still have the choice to make our decisions and our choices, taking us through a certain pathway that we end up with. Just because God knows the future doesn't mean He controls it. So notice there, by the way, this is a very big discussion in the Muslim world over centuries. It's a discussion that happens in many religions. Does God know the future? And if He does, do we have free will? So you can see here of the 2 beliefs, there is one belief or one school of thought that says if Allah has decided something and we can't change it, we just have to go through Allah's plan. But another school of thought says that we still have quite a lot of freedom to choose what we want to do. Just because Allah knows the future doesn't mean He controls our future. It's still in our hands. So if I have this belief, how could that influence a Muslim? The first influence would be to trust Allah's plan. If Allah's got a plan for me, I should trust it. So if, for example, I plan to do something, but that plan never happened, a Muslim would acknowledge the fact that actually maybe my plan wasn't actually good for me. Allah's plan is going to be better for me. And number 2, a Muslim would remember that nothing can happen without Allah. And that's why you might find that when Muslims speak to each other and make future plans, it's a very common phrase for them to say, I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Inshallah means with Allah's will or with Allah's permission. So Muslims, by using that phrase, are acknowledging the fact that I might plan to do something tomorrow, but that plan can only happen if Allah wills it to happen. And the quote from the Quran you could use is, we have created everything perfectly predestined. So the Quran speaks about this idea that Allah has created everything and each thing has got a perfect predestination. So Allah knows the plan of each creation and each human that is going to go forward with their lives. But again, Muslims differ on whether we can change any of these plans or whether we do have a lot of freedom still. Another key aspect you have to know in the topic of predestination is human freedom, also known as free will, and this is the idea that humans have control over their thoughts, feelings, and actions. The first belief about human freedom is that humans are responsible for their actions. A second belief is that what humans will do will be judged in the afterlife or the akhirah. So again, quite a similar thing to the idea of human responsibility, which I cover in the akhirah or afterlife video. So please look at that for more information, although it's going to be the same kind of thing. If Muslims believe in human freedom, they could be influenced, number 1, to be responsible for their beliefs and actions, because if you're free, you've got to be responsible for your choices, choosing good or choosing bad. And number 2, the second influence would be to remember that on Judgment Day, you'll be judged in the afterlife. And the Quran speaks about, let whoever wants to believe, believe, and let whoever wants to disbelieve, disbelieve. So the Quran is giving you the freedom to choose to believe in whatever you want or to disbelieve in whatever you want. You've got the human freedom to choose there. Allah is not going to force you to believe in something or disbelieve in something. It's your choice. And this means that Allah is fair. So when you think about the topic of predestination, you have to link it to, you have to know, the link to the afterlife. So if Allah is going to judge you in the afterlife, that means he has to give you some element, if not a lot of freedom, because it would not be fair of God to judge you if you had no freedom. Otherwise, if God punishes me for a bad action, I can just turn around and say to God, God, but I weren't free to do that. You chose for me to do bad. So therefore, why are you punishing me? So for God to be fair, he has to give you elements of freedom so that when he does judge you and reward you or punish you, it's entirely your fault and you can't blame anybody else for your good actions or bad actions. So that's what human freedom means under the topic of predestination. So you could be asked in your 4-mark question about 2 ways predestination or human freedom influences Muslims today. So do have a go at these questions, giving yourself a time limit of 3 to 4 minutes. So here's how I'd answer this question on how belief in predestination influences Muslims. One influence is to trust Allah's plan. This is because Muslims believe that Allah may have a better plan than one of the ones they made for themselves. So we have first mark for saying trusting Allah's plan and developing that further for the second mark. Another influence is to remember that nothing can happen without Allah's permission. That becomes my third mark. Let's develop that now. When they make a plan, they may use phrases like if Allah wills to show that Allah has ultimate control. These are 2 clear influences or predestination on the life of a Muslim. What about human freedom? How does that influence a Muslim if I believe in human freedom? So again, one influence is to be accountable for their actions. This is because they'll be judged alone for their deeds in the Akhirah. That's my development. Number 2, another influence is to remember Judgment Day. That's my third mark. This will make them feel responsible for their actions as they will know they'll need to answer for them. And that becomes 4 marks out of 4. 2 clear influences on the idea of human freedom developed, 4 marks out of 4. So when it comes to 6-mark questions, you can see that there are kind of 2 main things you could be asked about on this topic. 2 Muslim teachings about predestination or 2 Muslim teachings about human freedom, because they both come under the same part of the specification. So again, give yourself a time limit of 4 to 5 minutes per question. Give the video a pause and have a go at these questions. So let's model this answer. Explain 2 Muslim teachings about predestination. One belief is that it is one of the 6 articles of faith in Sunni Islam. It is the belief that everything that happens is decided by Allah already. That becomes 2 marks there for a developed point. Notice how on nearly all of the Muslim beliefs that fall under the 6 articles or the 5 roots of Shia Islam, if you just acknowledge the fact that they're on those lists and define them, that is worth a mark, usually all the time. Another belief is that Allah knows the future, but we have free will. Many Muslims believe that Allah does not force us to make any decision, even though He knows what we will choose. So that's 2 marks there of a developed point. Let's have my source and application. The Quran says, we have created everything perfectly predestined. This shows Allah is all-knowing and has a plan for everything. And this becomes a perfect 6 marks out of 6. And likewise here for the second question regarding human freedom, this is more about free will. So again, I have to explain 2 points about this from a Muslim perspective. One belief is that humans have control over their thoughts, feelings, and actions. Muslims believe that Allah has given us this so that we can be free to make our choices. That's worth 2 marks. Another belief is that it shows Allah's justice. So human freedom shows Allah's justice. The Quran says, let whoever wants to believe and let those who want to disbelieve. This shows Allah allows humans to believe or not, because for Allah to judge humans fairly on Judgment Day, there needs to be human freedom. So in that second paragraph there, I've got develop point, although the development comes in the second part. I've got scripture there with a source, which is also worth 1 mark. So I've got 3 marks altogether in that paragraph. And then that last bit, I've got application as well. So essentially, in that last 2 lines, I've got my development and application in the same bit. So again, even though it's a different order than like a formula, it is still hitting the criteria of the exam specification and mark scheme, which gets me 6 marks out of 6.